Welcome to episode 2 of Drunk Advertising History. I'm your host, Shiv Gupta. I'm drinking a beer called Bacon and Eggs, which is a weird name for a beer. It's a Imperial Coffee Porter from Pizza Port Brewery. It's delicious. Today we're going to be discussing the beginnings of digital advertising and, more importantly, the founding of the nonprofit industry organization in digital, which is the IAB, or also known as the Interactive Advertising Bureau. And I'm super excited because I have two legends joining me to discuss this topic, two founders of the IAB, fathers of this industry in a way, who started their careers, before the internet was even a thing, and then were pioneers of digital. Richy, do you want to kick it off?
Shiv, thanks for having me. Let me do that again. Sorry. Hold on, give me a count of 2. Ready?
1, 2.
Thanks for having me on Drunk Advertising History. I'm drinking a nice California cab in honor of you being out there in my normal ball jar. I've been in digital for 25 plus years. I was lucky enough to found CNN, be on the founding team of CNN.com in 1995. I've done 7 startups, 3 inside big media companies, 4 outside. And as you can tell from my background, my newest startup is Safeguard Privacy.
Awesome. I love it. Glad to have you on, Richy. I'm honored. Rich, do you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Hey, Shiv, thanks for having me. This is my classic IPA. So I'll be nursing that along the whole broadcast. My background is 45 years in the advertising business, and I've been a venture capitalist. I've been a traditional agency person, a startup head of sales for internet advertising, and of course, the founding of the IAB.
You guys are 2 of the founding members, which is incredible, right? Because the IAB is obviously so important to the industry today. I want to hear about, your actual experience with digital for the first time in this ecosystem. How did you kind of stumble upon it?
I actually didn't stumble on it. I was assigned to do it. I was lucky enough to grow up at MTV and at Turner, 2 of the best sales organizations in the industry with legendary leaders and tremendous training. Ted said, we're going to start a website on the internet. And I said, what's the web and what's the internet? Because it was January of 1995. And we literally, were told to shut up and figure it out.
Wow.
It was crazy.
That is crazy. Hey, Richy, quick sidebar. Do you have any good stories about Ted Turner?
I swore the oath of silence that the very best stories just have to stay inside.
Lame.
LeFurgy had as good a story starting ESPN.com as I had as CNN.com.
So I ended up going to Starwave Corporation, which is Paul Allen's new media company, co-founder of Microsoft, and we partnered with ESPN, and we sold some of the first ads on the internet.
So you guys obviously were pioneers of digital, right? Because, in each of your first stops, you were kind of engaging in some of the first kind of digital advertising that existed in the space. And then, the IAB happened, right? And I'm fascinated by the IAB.
Tell me everything.
It didn't just happen. It was a lot of hard work for a lot of people in a very interesting time.
We just started talking about what did we want to do with a trade association. And one of the most important things that we wanted to do by starting a trade association was having a collective voice.
I've heard that the IAB in the beginning was all volunteer, right? Like you guys are just volunteering your time to do this thing. Question for you guys is, what got you in the mindset to be kind of altruistic? What was the motivation to take out your own time to do something like this for the betterment of the industry?
So we just wanted to help everybody out. And one of the things that we used to say at the IAB is check your ego at the door, leave your company at the door.
You better check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Let's now talk about the actual impact, right, that we're seeing even today from some of those early initiatives that you worked on. So the first one was around the standards, right? The guidelines around banners, around advertising.
1996, when we were looking at ad spend and what people were doing, everybody was complaining. The agencies were complaining that they had to spend as much money on sizing the ads to make the different creatives as on spending the advertising.
You know, they have all different sizes and
So then I had to have these meetings every week with 60 companies to convince them to take the 8 sizes. So we finally got everybody to agree to it. Within a year, advertising doubled. Why? Because they stopped having to spend money to resize their ads. So it had a real practical impact on stuff.
Okay, that's awesome. So let's move to the next topic, which was I think the Price Waterhouse advertising report, right? That was a huge moment as well, where you guys, put a stake in the ground and said, "Hey, we need to be able to get auditing on this industry. We need to get reporting on this industry so we could be able to start tracking metrics, revenue, et cetera."
We wanted to prove that there was real spending going on the internet. And at the time, there were a lot of deals out there with AOL and other companies, including the browsers, the Netscape browsers, which were real estate deals, big numbers, like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. And people just didn't believe that this crazy thing on the internet was getting $2 million. They said, there's just no way it's happening. So what we decided to do was to prove that there was real spending going on. And we partnered with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and we did the online advertising revenue report. And in that first quarter, if you look at very small little tiny print in the revenue report, it's like $30 million in that first quarter. And we could show the growth over and over time. And importantly, we could see when it dipped, when the dot-com bubble burst. So the revenue report was really important to start to support our salespeople, that we needed our advertisers and agencies to pay for the media.
Come on, pay up, sucker.
So I want to hear a little bit about the T's and C's, right? So one of the big influences of the IAB on the industry today is you set guidelines, right? You make it possible for companies to transact with each other, right? Contractually, and you kind of define the T's and C's for the broader ecosystem. That had to start somewhere, right? So where did that start? What's the origin story of that?
Nobody had one set of contract terms, and it was frustrating the living heck out of everybody.
It was a very straightforward sort of process where we organized an agency committee and then a publisher committee, and we actually brought them together to hammer out the terms and conditions. And it was, as Richy said, a universal pain point. People were going absolutely nuts.
We were at an ad tech in New Orleans. It's 98. Rich has run the committees for the publisher side, the agency side, and it all comes down to liability, and no one will budge. And it's at ad tech at some hotel, and there's got to be 60 publishers in the room and 40 agency people. It's night. People are drinking. There's a bar in there, which was a bad idea. People are drunk. People are starting to fight. It's getting ugly. And Mike Donahue was the EVP of the ANA. And he goes, I got an idea. We'll give them an hour and we'll accept whatever they do. So we go to this other ballroom, which is empty. And there we leave 100 people and they just are drinking their brains out, right? It's New Orleans. And whatever, we agreed to whatever sequential liability. We figured it out. We come back in and everybody goes, yeah. And that was the T's and C's.
On kind of a final word, I would love to hear from each of you about, what about your experience maybe founding the IAB or some of your original experiences in the space do you feel like have stuck with you, right? And kind of influence and impact even digital advertising today that you can kind of impart to our audience?
My advice and what I've learned is just take risks.
Take a risk. Be willing to step off the cliff. Be willing to fail. And I'll say one other thing. What did Rich and I learn? We didn't do this alone. This was a team of people.
I think that lesson, right, that you guys learned in the 90s actually still is very true today in digital, because while we all might want to think that, oh, this industry is mature, it's actually we're still kind of figuring this out, right? It's still very nascent. There's still lots of opportunities. So I love that advice because I still think it's super applicable today.
We're in the first inning, not even the second inning. I think the next 10 years to figure out true identity and real consumer-driven consent, privacy, and relevant advertising can change the entire advertising ecosystem out there. And I think internet leads it. I think now is the time for people to take tremendous risks. I don't think the walled gardens own everything in 10 years. I think you look at history there is a need for creative destruction.
You guys are sages. You guys are legends. You guys are mentors. You guys are pioneers. Loved having you guys on. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys again sometime soon.
Cheers.
This is the beauty of what we do. We create our own stuff, which involves drinking.